She said no. Right there, in the middle of a packed restaurant with people watching, with someone's phone camera already pointed at us. She looked me dead in the eyes and said no. Not quietly, not gently, just no. And honestly, that wasn't even the worst thing she ever did to me. The worst thing came 4 years later when she walked into my school, looked around at everything I had built without her, and I watched something break behind her eyes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Ryan Carter. I'm 31 years old. I teach high school history just outside Chicago. I coach football after school. I live in a house that's too small and too loud and absolutely perfect. That's my life now. But 5 years ago, my life looked completely different. 5 years ago, I was with Olivia Reed. I need you to understand something about Olivia before I tell you what happened. She wasn't a bad person. I want to be clear about that. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't careless. She wasn't the kind of person who set out to hurt people on purpose. She was just someone who had decided a long time before she ever met me that her career was the only thing that mattered. And she built her entire life around that decision. Every choice she made, every relationship she kept or cut, every morning she woke up, and every night she went to sleep, it all pointed toward one thing: making partner at her law firm. That was the goal. That was the dream. That was everything. And for a while I thought I fit somewhere in that picture. I was wrong. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. Nothing special about how it started. She was standing near the bar talking to someone, and I walked over because she had this quiet confidence about her that made it hard to look away. She talked the same way she probably argued in court: clear, direct, no wasted words. I like that. We talked for 3 hours that night. A week later, we had dinner. A month later, we were together. 6 months later, I was completely gone. For her. The first year was good. Really good. She was sharp and funny and different from anyone I'd ever been with. She challenged me. We'd argue about things: law versus history, logic versus emotion, and it never felt like fighting. It felt like sparring, like two people who actually enjoyed pushing each other. She helped me plan curriculum. I helped her rehearse arguments out loud. On Sunday evenings, she made me feel like a better version of myself. And I think for a while I made her feel something too. I just don't think she ever let it go. All the way in. Looking back now with years of distance and a whole different life between me and those memories, I can see the cracks so clearly. They were there the whole time. I just didn't want to look at them. The canceled plans, and I mean constantly canceled plans. Birthday dinner, canceled. Long weekend trip, canceled. Simple Tuesday night movie, canceled. Because a client called at 7 p.m. and everything else had to stop. I told myself it was temporary. She was building something. You don't build something without sacrificing things. The vacations that weren't really vacations. We went to a lake house once with some of her friends. I was excited. She had barely taken a weekend off in months. I thought it would be good for us. She spent most of the trip on her laptop. I sat on the dock alone and watched the by myself 2 nights in a row. When I said something about it, she got defensive. You knew what my job was like when we started dating, she said. I did. But knowing and living it are different things. The moment she stopped seeing me and started seeing a variable, that's the hardest one to explain. It crept up slowly. The way she looked at me changed. Somewhere around the end of our second year together. Like I had shifted from being her person to being a piece of her schedule. Something to manage. I have dinner with Ryan tonight. Started to feel the same as I have a conference call at 8 o'clock. I told myself I was being dramatic. I wasn't. 18 months in, we moved in together. My idea. I thought it would bring us closer. Make us feel like a real team. For a while it did. She'd sit at the kitchen table on Sunday mornings, surrounded by case files and yellow highlighters, and I'd make Pancakes. She'd eat without looking up. I'd refill her coffee without asking. We built a rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like ours. Then came the partner track. When she found out she was being seriously considered for partnership, the youngest associate in the firm's history, everything shifted again. Whatever balance we had found, whatever small space I had carved out in her life, it got smaller. 80-hour weeks became 100-hour weeks. Client dinners on nights she had promised to be home. Emergency filings at midnight. I stopped expecting things. I started just hoping. But I also started thinking about the future in a way I hadn't before. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to make it official. Solid. Real. I wanted to marry her. I want you to understand what drove me to propose that night, because I think it matters. It wasn't naivety. It wasn't some romantic fantasy. It was a choice. A deliberate one. I looked at our life, the real version, not the perfect version, and I decided I wanted it. Not in spite of the hard parts, but alongside them. I thought she felt the same way. I was wrong. 2 weeks before the proposal, I drove an hour to my parent house. My mom had been holding on to my grandmother's ring since I was in college. She always said she'd know when the right time came. She brought it up a few times over the years when I was dating different people. She never brought it up with Olivia. When I sat down at their kitchen table and told them I was going to propose, my mom cried almost immediately. She went to her bedroom and came back with the ring in a small velvet box that had gone soft at the edges from age. It was simple. A single stone. Not flashy. Just real. My dad shook my hand. Find someone to build with, he said. That's what it's about. I drove home with the ring in my jacket pocket and practiced what I was going to say the entire way back. I practiced for 2 weeks. The restaurant was our place. Nothing special by any outside standard. Mid-range, casual, good steaks. But we had been going since our 4th date. The waiters knew us. They always brought Olivia extra bread. Without asking. I always ordered the same thing. I had told the manager about the proposal. He had the staff ready. Olivia showed up looking tired but present, which by that point felt like an achievement. Dinner was normal. Good, actually. We talked. She laughed at something I said. For maybe 90 minutes, it felt like the early days. And then I reached into my jacket. And everything changed. I saw the shift in her face the moment. Her eyes landed on the ring box. I expected surprise. Or nerves. Or even happy tears. What I saw was panic. Clean, cold panic. Like I had just announced something terrible. What are you doing? She said. Her voice was different. Not the warm, familiar voice I knew. Something harder. Controlled. I was already half out of my chair. I'm asking you to marry me, I said. The restaurant went quiet. I didn't notice at the time. I only noticed her. She looked at the ring. Then at me. Then at the ring again. And then she started crying. Not the good kind. The kind that means something has already been decided. She said she was sorry. She said she cared about me. She said timing mattered in everything, and the timing was wrong. She explained it the way she'd explain a legal argument. Calm. Organized. Her career was at a critical point. The partnership decision was months away. A major case was coming up that would determine everything she had worked toward. Marriage meant divided attention. It meant someone else's needs factoring into decisions that had to be clean and sharp and only about her work. She couldn't afford distraction. Not now. Maybe not ever. She said it all so reasonably that for a second I almost understood. But then I looked around. The people nearby had put down their forks. Someone's phone was pointed at us. And I was standing there with my grandmother's ring in a velvet box in a restaurant that had been our place for 3 years, completely exposed in front of everyone. I tried. I want to be clear about that. I tried. I said we could wait as long as she needed. Years, if that's what it took. I said I wasn't asking her to quit anything or sacrifice anything. I just wanted to know, needed to know, that I existed in her future somewhere. She said, maybe someday when things are different. And in that moment, I finally understood. I had been building a future with someone who had never been building one. With me. I put the ring back in the box. I put the box in my pocket. I paid for dinner without saying a word. We drove home without speaking. When I walked in the door, she went straight to the bedroom. I sat on the couch in the dark for a long time. When I finally got up, I found her filling boxes. She had already been thinking about it. She had already looked at apartments. She had already made the decision. All that remained was execution. Within 3 days, she was gone. I stood in the middle of my apartment, and stared at the space where she had been. Her coffee mug was still in the cabinet. Her hair tie was still on the bathroom sink. Her handwriting was still on a grocery list stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet. She had left those things without meaning to, and they wrecked me worse than anything she said that night. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. Not dramatic, movie-style hard. Just the slow, grinding kind. Getting up every morning felt like lifting something heavy. Going to work helped because it forced me to be present, to be useful, to think about other people's problems instead of my own. But coming home was awful every single time. I cleaned the apartment obsessively, threw things away, rearranged furniture, tried to make it feel different. It didn't work. My friends were great. They showed up. They brought food. They sat with me even when I wasn't talking. But there's a limit to what other people can do for something like that. You just have to go through it. So I did. I buried myself in work, extra coaching hours, a new elective course I had been putting off for 2 years, every committee, every extra duty, every project I could find. I stayed late. I came in early. I let the school fill the space she had left. And slowly, very slowly, I started to feel like myself again. About 8 months after the breakup, my friend Jake called me on a Saturday afternoon and told me to get dressed. I said I was busy. He said no, I wasn't. There was a fundraiser at the public library downtown, book sale, community event. He was going and he wanted company. I told him I had papers to grade. He came to my apartment, knocked on my door, and waited until I got my shoes on. I owe him a lot for that. The library was warm and crowded in a nice way. People moving between tables of donated books, kids running around, someone playing soft music in the corner. I wasn't expecting anything. I was just there. And then I saw Emily. She was helping coordinate the book sale, carrying boxes, directing people, laughing at something a coworker said. She worked at the children's section of the library downtown. This was her event. She had helped plan it. I wandered over to a table near her, without really thinking about it. We ended up talking about a kid's book series I used to love growing up. She knew it well. We disagreed about which book in the series was the best. That disagreement turned into a 2-hour conversation that covered books, teaching her niece's obsession with imaginary animals, my most memorable student stories, bad coffee, and the best way to spend a Saturday. Before I left, I asked for a number. She said yes. Our first date was coffee and a walk around the neighborhood. It was so simple. No performance. No pressure. No one trying to impress the other one. She told a story about her niece's preschool graduation like it was the funniest thing she had ever witnessed. I told her about the time a student handed in a paper on the Civil War that was accidentally submitted with 20 pages of fan fiction at the end. We laughed until the coffee was cold. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. We took it slow. Neither of us pushed. Neither of us rushed. But every time I saw her, it felt like something was settling into place. Something I didn't know I had been missing. She texted me during the day, not important things, just small observations. A funny sign she walked past. A book she thought I'd like. A sentence that reminded her of something I had said. She showed up at my school sometimes, with coffee, not to make a big deal of it, just because she was nearby and thought, I might want some. She sat in my classroom on Tuesday, evenings while I finished grading, and read her own book without saying a word. Just there, quiet and comfortable. I had never had anyone make me feel that. Quietly, simply valued before. A year in, I met her family at a summer cookout. Her dad was a big man with a direct stare. He pulled me aside near the end of the night. She looks different when she talks. About you, he said. Happier. Don't mess that up. He said it like a warning. I took it like a promise. 14 months after that cookout, I proposed. No restaurant. No ring box pulled from a jacket on a dramatic night. We were on her couch. Some movie was playing that we had both stopped watching 20 minutes in, just talking about nothing in particular. About whether we'd ever want to live somewhere different. About what kind of dog we'd get if we got a dog. About silly things. I paused, looked at her, and said, do you want to do this? Forever? Like actually forever? She looked at me for a second, then burst into tears. The good kind. Yes, she said immediately. No hesitation. No calculation. No prepared speech. Just yes. I didn't even have a ring yet. We picked one out together 3 weeks later. She said that's how she wanted it. Anyway, we got married on a Saturday in September. Small wedding. Maybe 60 people. Her family. Nine. Close friends. My students made a group card that read, Mr. Carter is getting married. Followed by so many drawings of stick figures in wedding dresses that I laughed for 10 minutes straight. I put it in a frame. Life moved fast after that. In the best possible way. We found a house, small, older, needed work. We spent weekends painting walls and arguing about furniture placement and ordering too much takeout because we kept forgetting to buy groceries. We got a dog. A big, dumb, wonderful golden retriever named Biscuit, who immediately destroyed one shoe from every pair I owned. We talked about kids the way people talk, about things they're genuinely looking forward to. Not a plan, a dream. And then Ava arrived. She came at 2:47 in the morning, screaming at a volume that I genuinely did not believe was possible from something that small. She had Emily's eyes. She had a dinosaur onesie that she wore approximately 6 days a week for the first year of her life. She changed everything. I don't mean that in the cliche way. People always say it. I mean, she physically, literally changed the structure of my entire life, and I didn't mind for even 1 second. I started my master's degree the year after Ava was born, teaching full-time, coaching, being a dad, and writing academic work at 11 o'clock p.m. on the living room floor with Biscuit sleeping on my feet. Emily held everything together. She edited my papers. She managed Ava on weekend mornings so I could write. She kept the house running on evenings, when I was at practice or at the library. She never once made me feel guilty about the time it took. When I had a bad week, when I couldn't find a source I needed, when my thesis chapter fell apart, when I felt like I was failing at everything. Simultaneously, she would sit down next to me and say, tell me what's wrong. And then she'd listen. Really listen. Not fix. Not solve. Just hear me. I had never understood how much that mattered until I had it. I didn't know then that all of this, the degree, the family, the life we had, built was about to walk into a room and mean something in a way I never expected. It was a Tuesday in October. 4 years after the night at the restaurant. For years since Olivia had packed boxes in our apartment and walked out. My school district had been facing budget cuts that threatened half our programs, arts, athletics, after-school tutoring, the mentorship initiative I had helped build, all of it on the table. The district got sued. A law firm took the case pro bono, and Olivia was assigned to lead it. I found out from my principal, who had no idea about our history. The lead attorney is coming in to meet with some of the teachers, he said. Get your documentation together. He showed me the name. Olivia Reed. I sat with that for a minute. Then I said, sure. What else was there to say? The morning of the meeting, Emily stopped by my office. She was 6 months pregnant with our second. She came in carrying 2 coffees and wearing a dress that showed her baby bump and smiling like she always does. Like she genuinely means it every single time. Ready for your meeting? She asked. Yeah, I said. Think so. She handed me a coffee, put her hand on my face for a second. You've got this, she said. I'll see you for lunch. She kissed me and walked out. 30 seconds later, Olivia walked in. I don't know how to describe the exact moment she appeared in the doorway. She looked exactly like herself. Polished, professional, expensive black suit, heels, hair pulled back perfectly. But something was different. Her eyes, they were tired in a way I had never seen before. Not the tired of a long day, the tired of a long time, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. She saw me. Something crossed her face. Not quite. Emotion, not quite nothing. She recovered in less than 2 seconds. Ryan, she said. Professional. Clean. Olivia, I said. There was a pause, probably 2 seconds, but it felt longer. Emily was still visible at the end of the hallway outside my office. She turned back briefly, waved at me, and disappeared around the corner. Olivia's eyes followed her. I let the silence sit for exactly as long as it deserved. Then I said, that's my wife, Emily. She works at the downtown library. Olivia looked back at me. She's pregnant, she said. 6 months, I said. Second one. Something moved behind her expression. She reset it immediately. Congratulations, she said. Thanks, I said. Should we get started? The meeting had 4 other teachers in. My principal sat at the head of the table. Olivia was accompanied by a junior attorney who took notes the entire time. We went through everything. Program budgets, enrollment numbers, impact statements. I had organized 3 years of documentation into a folder that I handed to her at the start. She went through it efficiently, asked sharp questions, took notes. She was good at her job. I had never doubted that. At some point, a colleague asked about my background, why I had so much documentation ready, how I knew what was relevant. I mentioned I was finishing my dissertation, that I had been working on it for 3 years alongside teaching and coaching. Olivia looked up. You're in a doctoral program, she said. Education policy, I said. Finishing up in spring. She held my gaze for a second longer. Then she needed to. While teaching full-time, she asked. And coaching, I said. And with a 2-year-old at home. I paused. My wife's been incredible. She edits my drafts, handles Avon weekends so I can write. I don't know how I would have done it without her. I wasn't twisting a knife. I wasn't. I was just telling the truth. But the truth can be sharp. Olivia nodded once. Her face stayed neutral. She made a note. Later in the meeting, someone asked about community impact. I pulled out my phone to show a photo of one of the literacy events Emily had, organized in partnership with our school's program. Ava had been there that day. She was in the background of one of the photos, covered in paint, wearing her dinosaur shirt, laughing at something. I turned the phone toward the table. That's my daughter, Ava, I said. She turned 2 last month. She is in love with dinosaurs and has approximately no interest in wearing shoes. A few people at the table smiled. Olivia glanced at the photo. She looked at it for just a second. Then she looked away. The meeting ended 47 minutes after it started. Efficient. Professional. Good. We shook hands at the door. Hers was firm and brief. I'll be in touch with next steps, she said. Sounds good, I said. Thank you for taking the case. She nodded once, and she left. I stood in the hallway for a moment, after she disappeared around the corner. Then I went to find Emily for lunch. The case went to trial 6 weeks later. Olivia won. The district kept the programs. She sent me a formal email with the outcome. I replied, "Thank you for your work on this. It matters to a lot of people." That was the last time we communicated directly. But over the following year, I heard things, not from her, through people who knew her. And I want to be careful about how I tell this part because it isn't meant to be satisfying in a cruel way. I'm not proud of how it made me feel, but I'd be lying if I said I felt nothing. The first thing I heard was that she missed a major deadline a few months after the trial, not because of negligence, because she had been awake for 3 days, straight finishing another case, and simply ran out of capacity. The partners were not understanding. The second thing I heard was that she stopped coming in on time, started forgetting small things, started making errors that were uncharacteristic of her. Someone who worked at her firm described it as watching someone run a machine past its limit. Eventually, something breaks. She took her first vacation in 4 years, went to her parents' house, slept for 3 days straight, came back and tried to keep going. She couldn't. About 10 months after our meeting in that conference room, she broke down during a client presentation, stopped mid-sentence and couldn't continue, couldn't stop crying. Her firm put her on indefinite leave. She resigned 3 months later. She gave up the partnership she had chosen over everything and everyone for years. I heard this from a mutual friend who texted me out of nowhere one night. I sat with it for a while. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something sadder than that. I felt like someone had just told me that a building I used to live in had collapsed. You don't celebrate it. You just feel the weight of it. She moved out of her expensive downtown apartment, started over. She took a position doing legal aid work, helping people who couldn't afford proper representation. Long hours still, but different hours. Work that meant something different. Made a fraction of what she used to make. And from what I heard from the mutual friend who ran into her at a coffee shop, about 6 months after she quit, she looked different. Not better in a glossy way. Just lighter. Less like someone running toward a destination, and more like someone who had finally stopped running. The friend mentioned me, told her I was doing well. 3 kids. Still teaching. Still coaching. Made assistant principal, youngest in the district's history. Olivia apparently went quiet for a moment. Then she said she was glad. She said she had been thinking about things, about choices she had made, mistakes she couldn't undo. But she was trying to build something different now. Something smaller. Something real. I heard that, and I sat with it. I'm not going to tell you I felt nothing. I'm not going to pretend there wasn't a piece of me that had needed to hear that. For a long time, there was. But that piece is smaller than it used to be. Because here's the thing about carrying old anger, it's exhausting. It takes up space that could be used for better things. And I have too many better things now. Let me tell you about our second daughter, Mia. She was born on a Thursday evening in late spring. Unlike Ava, who announced herself with a roar, Mia arrived quietly, wide-eyed, just taking everything in. She is still like that. Ava charges into every room. Mia observes first. By 3, she was already trying to organize her toys by category. By 4, she had declared she wanted to be a librarian like her mom. Emily cried when she said that. Then came Jack. Our son arrived 2 years after Mia in the middle of an ice storm that almost resulted in a very dramatic home birth. He was fine. He is chaos in human form. He is joy. He has found the word banana hilarious. 4 8 straight months and shows no signs of moving on. The house is loud. Always. There are dinosaur figures on every surface. There are small shoes by every door. There are drawings on papers covering the refrigerator, the hallway, the inside of closets. There is a dog that insists on sleeping at the foot of our bed, even though he takes up approximately 70% of it. There are Sunday mornings with pancakes and coffee and someone's cartoon playing. Too loud in the other room, and Ava arguing about something with tremendous conviction and Mia organizing her. Crayons with focused precision and Jack discovering something ordinary and finding it incredibly funny. I defended my dissertation on a Friday morning in April. I had been up since 3 a.m. because Mia had a fever and Emily and I had taken turns sitting with her through the night. I walked into the defense on 4 hours of sleep with coffee that had gone cold in my hand. Emily was in the back of the room. Ava was next to her coloring quietly. Mia was on Emily's lap, still a little drowsy. Jack, somehow miraculously, was asleep in the carrier against Emily's chest. I stood in front of the committee. I talked about education policy and funding gaps and structural inequality in public school systems. I answered every question they threw at me. And when the committee chair announced that I had passed Emily's cheer from, the back of that room probably rattled. The windows. Ava jumped up and clapped without knowing exactly why. Mia smiled her quiet smile. Jack woke up, looked around, and said something that wasn't a word yet, but was delivered with great confidence. It was chaos. It was the single best moment of my professional life. The following fall, I was named assistant principal, youngest in the district's history. The same week, Emily was promoted to director of the library's literacy programs, the work she had been building for 3 years. Her initiative had expanded to 12 schools. We went out to dinner to celebrate. Just the two of us. No kids. No dog. No chaos. Just us at a quiet table the way it had been years ago on our second date. She ordered the same thing she always orders. I ordered something new just to break the habit. We talked for 3 hours about the kids, about work, about things that had nothing to do with either, about the future. Not a plan, just what we wanted it to look like. More travel when the kids were older. A bigger house someday. Maybe. Her literacy program expanded. Nationally, if she wanted to push it that far. My doctoral research published, maybe. The same Sunday mornings forever. I think about that night at the restaurant sometimes. Not obsessively. Not with the same weight it once had. Just occasionally the way you sometimes remember a moment that shaped you. I think about standing up from the chair. The quiet that fell over the restaurant. The ring in my hand. Her face. That sentence. I can't. At the time, it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. It hollowed me out. It made me question things I didn't know. I had been assuming that I was enough. That the right effort would always be seen, that love was something you built together without one person doing all the work. It took me a long time to stop asking what I had done wrong. The answer, when it finally came, was simple. Nothing. I had done nothing wrong. I had just loved someone who had decided something else was more important. That's not a crime. That's not a moral failure. It's just two people who were pointing in different directions. And the thing I couldn't see then, the thing you can only see in hindsight, is that night at the restaurant didn't destroy my future. It removed one. And by removing it, it made room. Room for a Saturday at a library fundraiser. Room for a 2-hour conversation about books. Room for a first date that felt like breathing out after holding your breath too long. Room for a woman who said yes on a couch. Without hesitation, without calculation, without any version of I can't. Room for 3 kids and a dog and a house full of noise. Room for Sunday pancakes and Christmas. Movie arguments and bedtime stories read until my voice gives out. Room for a life that fits. That's what Olivia gave me in the end. She didn't mean to, but when she said no, she gave me everything. And now I've got Ava at 7 in full T-Rex shirt, absolutely certain that dinosaurs could make a comeback, and we should be prepared for it. I've got Mia at 4, quietly building towers of books taller than her own head. I've got Jack at 2, convinced that banana is the funniest word in the English language, and honestly, I'm starting to agree with him. I've got Emily, who is still the easiest person I have ever been around, who Still sends me random texts during the day about nothing important. Who still shows up in my classroom doorway. Sometimes just to check in. Who still falls asleep on the couch on Friday nights with her head on my shoulder while some kid's movie plays on the TV. Neither of us is watching. I've got Sunday mornings with coffee and pancakes. I've got a life that is loud and messy and imperfect and absolutely full. The night I sat back down in that restaurant, ring in my pocket, feeling like the ground had fallen out from under me, I thought that was the end. It wasn't the end. It was just the wrong thing ending. And the right thing was already being built. I just couldn't see it yet.